Hello and welcome back to the JustBeCos podcast, a podcast about all things life and cosplay. It's me, your boy Jeremy. Guess what? It's me. Yeah, you knew it's me. It's not anybody else. Sorry. It's me. You're stuck with me. Now, guess what? This week, we are going to be speaking to one of my favourite people in the Brisbane cosplay community. You would have seen them around. They're a famous cosplayer. They're a professional seamstress. They work with people from all around the world. You would have seen her on billboards places. And you know what? She's also organising their very own convention. And that's what we're going to be talking about today with the very wonderful Nyx Cosplay. Hello, Nyx. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Hi, Jeremy. That was quite the flattering intro.
Well, I have to tell the people the truth, okay? They need to know. Now, for anybody who doesn't know you like I do, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Claudia or Nyx Cosplay. I've been cosplaying for 10 years, and I have a diploma of costumes. Like Jeremy mentioned, I have been doing cosplay commissions for a long time, so that kind of comes into the professional cosplay seamstress. And I actually marked my 10th anniversary of cosplay at Gold Coast Supernova by being their cosplay guest, which was like a really cool, almost full circle moment. I think that's how people use it.
Yeah.
Where I started in 2014, was a baby 14-year-old, didn't know how to put on a wig properly or makeup. And then 10 years later, here I am, I'm a guest, and that felt really cool.
That's awesome. So, from your baby cosplay days to where you are now, do you look back on it thinking, wow, I've come such a long way, I'm so proud of you? Like, oh man, I look back at those days and I cringe a little bit. Like, how do you feel kind of being a person in the community which people kind of see you and they're like, wow, that's Nyx, let's go say hi, she's awesome to talk to. Like, how does that feel?
Gosh, well, yeah, back in those days, I started out cosplaying Hetalia, which, have you heard of Hetalia?
Oh, trust me, I've been in the trenches. I remember Hetalia.
Yeah, if you've been around cosplaying this long, you've probably heard of it. And then I went to Homestuck. So I was, kind of deep in those, like, cringe 14-year-old things. But I had an awesome time, and I learned a lot and met some really great people. So I do look back and cringe a bit at just how it was and putting on body paint and all those fun times. But it is what led me to be where I am today, and why I get it when people are starting out in cosplay and not everything's perfect. Obviously.
Yeah.
You've got to put in the hard hours.
You got to learn a little bit about it and say, oh, this works, this doesn't work. Yeah. Oh, that sucks. So now, at this point in time, you're actually helping run and organise a cosplay convention, one of the first ones of its kind in Brisbane. We'll get to that in just a second, but what I want to get into first is kind of like your backstory into wanting to do something like this, because we all, I'm going to ask, like, straight up, was it, like, your goal, saying, oh, wow, I love cosplaying conventions so much, I want to make my own convention? Was that, like, the goal from day one, or was it, like, it's just an idea that popped up?
It was.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a funny story.
Okay. Please
Pip
tell us.
bleaches my hair, and one night she was bleaching all of my hair. I have quite a lot. So it was many hours and some bleach fumes. And we kind of mentioned it before, but we were getting more into talking about if we ran a convention, what would it look like? Because I feel like in people that run conventions, there's a lack of, like, people who are in the community. Most people who run conventions are kind of older men, and we bring a wildly different perspective where we are younger women who are cosplayers and have been in the community. We're not coming into it as, like, investors or businessmen. We're like, we want to see something great for this community.
That's really cool. Now, before we get into that, diving in further, I think that's a really cool place to come from as well, because obviously, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, the name of the convention is the Cosplay Market Convention. It's going to be in Brisbane on what date?
June 22nd.
June 22nd. So that's just a couple of weeks away from when this podcast will drop, okay? I will ask you for some details very soon, but like I said, we want to get into, like, the lead up to it, and it's, like you said, it sounded like it was two friends hanging out, just doing each other's hair, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Let's make a convention. But I know yourself and Pip, and hopefully you all know Pip by now. If you don't know Pip, you remember Maya. Don't forget Maya. It's Pip's sister, who's also in Mellow Para, the recently graduated group, but Pip and Nix are
Pip
both...
was on an episode.
She was. It was way
You
back...
should have listened to that.
You should have. If
Yeah.
you haven't, then I'll have to bring her back in
What are
here.
you doing?
Okay. But both you and Pip, you both started off as cosplayers, just wearing costumes in the scene. And how has your journey kind of been so far? Because I know you mentioned before, and I asked, you were just a baby cosplayer doing Hitalia, just having fun and doing your thing. How has your journey been so far? Because obviously we met through the competitive sphere. We kind of did WCS on the same stage together. But what kind of led up to that point? Were you like, oh, you know what, I want to start competing? And you're obviously still doing it. But what's your journey been like so far in terms of starting from a Hitalia costume to, getting up on stage to running a convention? Like, how has that journey unfolded?
Yeah, so going back to 2014, we are returning. That was also the first year I went to Smash, and I saw the WCS prelim, and it was with Nat. Who did Nat enter with in that year? She was Nobunaga. Do you remember?
That's a good question, Nat. I'm so sorry if you're listening to this. I forgot
Sorry,
your
Nat.
2014. What did they place that year?
Yes, she won.
That would have been with maybe. Oh, what's her name? Lucy, I think it was.
It was with Lucy, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
So yeah, 2014, go to the WCS prelim, see Nat and Lucy win, and also just all the other amazing cosplayers in WCS. And I was like, I want to do that. But I also wasn't very good at sewing, so it was more a slow build-up.
Yeah.
Where I was entering more like the supernova level competitions and things like that. And kind of working on building up my skills through high school. And then I graduated, went on to do my costume diploma, which helped a lot in building my confidence in my work in order to do it professionally. Yeah, I think it was around then I started also reaching out to kind of smaller conventions, being like, hey, you want a cosplay guest? Let me come judge your competition, and I can do a panel, and I can help you out in that sort of way. So there was that. And then, as with all things, there was sort of this pause over COVID. But coming out from COVID, I was talking to Maya, and she really inspired me to enter WCS, which is when you and Maya entered.
Yeah.
And that kind of began our friendship. Like we'd known each other from being in the same community, but that's where we actually got to know each other, and that was the case with a lot of people.
That's cool.
So yeah, inspired me, got in there, got to become better friends with Pip, so it's kind of what birthed both this podcast that we're on and CMC itself in a way.
Yeah, right.
It was a big year for WCS and sparking things, I think.
Was that your first competition, like first big competition that you entered?
Yes, it is the first big one I entered.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And if anyone doesn't know, Nix also entered the DreamHack Masters tier competition and got third with like a big fat paycheck too, which is awesome.
Yeah, listeners wouldn't know, but I was walking past Jeremy and Jinxie recording the podcast with my fat check, like, look.
That's where you saw me do the shout. Oh my god, shout out to Nick. See her with that check. Look how she just got third. Oh my god. I said that. Don't worry. We saw you.
Okay, good. It's been a while. Sorry.
Yeah. But for an experience like that and competing, has that just kind of fueled you to like, oh my god, this is awesome. I want to keep going and kind of reach newer heights and see how far you can kind of take it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always, for 10 years now, been a dream of mine to represent the country with cosplay, get to travel internationally for that. And it's only kind of recently when I felt confident enough in my skills and also had like the time and money to actually do that.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So do you feel like for yourself, that's the active pursuit that you're working on now? You've got the side hustle, which is, a day job, which pays the bills, but, on the side, in the dark hours of the night, you're burning that midnight oil and crunching, either making costumes or you're applying to places or you're in talks with people, just kind of seeing what opportunities you can create for yourself. What's that kind of been like in your experience so far? Because you're not someone who, because I know for a lot of judges for, big competitions like WCS or something like DreamHack, they're people with a bit of a portfolio. They're someone who's, already travelled, or they're people who've won big competitions before. So for yourself, as you're kind of building your portfolio and doing these things, how have you found that journey again, that experience of building yourself up and applying to places? Has that been fun? Has it been challenging? Has it been crap? What's it been like?
It's a bit of both. I think it builds a lot of determination, where you challenge yourself and you want to see how far you can go and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
do your best with things. So, yeah, I've entered a lot of lower level competitions and built myself up and learned in that way.
Mm.
Uh, and through that experience and those skills, I've been able to apply for judging in that sort of level.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Now, this obviously has all led to where we are now with you guys starting up the Cosplay Market Convention, which, as if anyone hasn't seen it yet, the theme is blue. They're all wearing blue shirts. They've been at your local conventions around the place advertising this thing. And this came as just a random discussion. But when did you guys sit down and say, how about we actually sit down and plan this thing out and go for it? When did that start happening? Was that during the middle of the hair session, or did you say after the hair was done, like, let's get a coffee and actually, write some stuff down?
The hair was done at 11 p.m. That was bedtime.
Right.
But no, so then we kind of had that discussion, and then it was a while, and I was going through just like the stash of materials and costumes I have.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not the only one with this problem. Someone's got to start an event where we can share and spread our secondhand things. All of these cosplayers, all of these crafters, they have all this fabric, these wigs that they're not really going to use, and it's overtaking their houses. We need a market.
Yeah.
And I don't just want it to be a market for market's sake. I also want it to be for charity. So I reached out to Pip, like, I'm going to do it. Are you in? And she's like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
That's really cool.
And that was the first Cosplay Market Convention. No, first Cosplay Market was not yet convention.
There's not a convention.
So that was just at the New Farm neighborhood center.
Community hall or something, yeah.
Community hall? Yeah, it was along those lines. So it was across from the park, which is lovely, but it wasn't that big. It had a capacity of like 50 odd people. But we were like, let's just start small. Let's dip our toes into event planning and creating this thing. So
now,
we got it together.
I actually went to that one. Yeah. I sold a bunch of my costumes. Some sold, a lot didn't, because it's, I don't know, from 20 years ago, in the tiniest size you've ever seen for a dude. But what was the response to that like? Because the attendance looked like it was quite constant, it was quite steady. There were even some people kind of coming in these big costumes thinking, I didn't know what to expect. But what was the response like? Did you have lots of people wanting to come along, but you couldn't because of the limit capacity, or what was it like?
Absolutely. The response was so positive. It was really amazing. We didn't know, because it was the first kind of thing like this in the area. So we weren't really sure how the community would respond, I suppose. But it was really positive. We sold out. There were so many people who wanted to come but weren't able to, because we were just limited by the space that we had and just giving it a go. So things went so well. We were fundraising for Transcend Australia, which is a charity for trans rights. And with just the 80 people total that we had over the course of the day, we raised $860 for the charity.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing. And that was thanks to our sponsor raffle, and also due to half of the entry ticket going to charity. So kind of while reflecting on that, and we did a feedback survey for attendees and vendors, and everyone's saying, we want more, we want bigger. And we were like, how do we do this? We got to do a whole convention.
Cool.
Is what the community really needs.
And that's kind of led up to what's happening in a few weeks' time on the 22nd of June, on Saturday, at the Brisbane Technology Park. What is the venue capacity? What's going to be new about this, upgraded venue, upgraded capacity? What's going to be featuring at this particular convention versus, the small hall that we were in last year?
Yeah, my goodness, we are growing a lot. So as you said, we're at BTV Convention and Exhibition Centre, which is in 8 Mile Plains. So that's like 15 minutes south of Brisbane City. We have a capacity of 1,000 people this time, which is much different from the 50 original. And we'll have more of the typical things you expect from a convention, such as the artist alley, the vendors, the cosplay competition, the cosplay ambassadors, the panels, as well as the market, where we have the same thing as the original. We're keeping that at our core, where people can sell their secondhand costumes, wigs, cosplay materials, merchandise, and things like that. Which is part of one of our major goals is sustainability. Like recently, cosplay is becoming more and more of a fast fashion thing, and everyone's churning through costumes. And we want them to not just end up in the bin. We
No,
want them to be
absolutely.
able to spread to new people, and people on a budget, newer cosplayers, are able to get cosplays at cheaper prices as well because they are secondhand.
I really like that thought, and I really like what you guys are putting forward through it, because same thing, I think every cosplay is the same. You make something, and you've got the sentimental value attached to it. I put X number of hours work into it, and you don't know what to do with it. At the very least, you're like, oh, can I profit from this? Possibly. Unlikely, because secondhand, right? Can I... do I want to throw this away? Like, I don't really want to throw it away because, all the sentimental value attached to it and all the work you've put in. So you're thinking, okay, cool. Can I give this to someone who, can love it as much as I did and have a second home? And I really felt that with, again, if anyone doesn't know, I was also at the first one as selling some of my old crap, and I've probably had, I don't know, 40 costumes or something to sell, and I sold maybe 5 or 6. It wasn't a great amount, but the ones I did sell, it was to some really young 14-year-old, 15-year-olds who's like, oh my god, I love Animal Crossing, can I buy this? Like, yeah, have it for $10, like, whatever. And then same thing, there's a cosplay came in from Sydney, and he said, oh my god, I have seen this costume for like hundreds of dollars online, and it's like, yeah, I'll give it to you for, I don't know, $30, because I'm not going to wear it. And it's like you said, it's really giving new cosplayers this opportunity to find costumes which they've looked at for a long time, but they couldn't afford because it's too expensive brand new, or they just never had the means to make it themselves because they're not quite at that level yet. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic initiative. I really hope this one goes well for you guys so far. What's the ticket sales looking like so far? Are you allowed to reveal that, or is it looking pretty good, or?
It's looking pretty good. It's interesting because I know what cosplayers are like, and I know what I'm like, where it's all very last minute.
Last
I'm
minute,
getting
yeah.
a ticket the week of the convention. But even still, they're steadily flowing in, and that's really exciting.
That's
for me.
nice, because you're probably going to have
It's
at-the-door
always
sales.
fun getting the email coming in.
Yeah, you probably have like at-the-door sales too, where people kind of just shop on the day thinking, oh yeah, I can just buy something here, and...
Yeah, exactly. As long as it's not sold out, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Is there anything that you guys are, I guess, excited for or a bit trepidatious for? You're not really sure how it's going to go because it's such a new thing for you guys? Is there anything that comes to mind that you're like, ooh, really excited for this, but ooh, really unsure at the same time?
Arguably, we're both excited and trepidatious for all of it, I suppose, because it is our first time. But we have a really great team with us now. It's not only me and Pip, we also have our wonderful coordinators who are taking over kind of specific departments. So we're able to kind of focus on running the overall thing, and then we have people who are focused on individual things, which is helping a lot. Because, running a whole convention, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot going on, and we really want it to be as good as it can be.
Is there any, if you don't mind me asking as well, because it's just, for the most part, you two are the brains behind the entire operation, you would have probably had to brainstorm every possibility or everything that you need to provide, any potential problem. Have you consulted or brought anybody on board who've had experience in the organization things in a convention before that you've had to talk to, or has anybody tried to reach out to you saying, hey, look, I'm a professional, you should definitely listen to me? Have you had any of that kind of interaction with people?
So I've actually reached out to my friends in New Zealand who run Kohai Fan Fest, which is another kind of more grassroots by cosplayers for cosplayers convention. So I've been able to draw on their experiences, which has been fantastic. Additionally, for our ball, we have Rhea Gaming Goddess as the coordinator for that section, and she has experience running balls in the UK.
Ooh.
So we're able to use her knowledge and experience of that, which is awesome. We also have some incredible tech people who are professionally trained and really know what they're doing, which I don't know how we could do it without them.
Yeah.
It's really added a lot to have people who know what they're doing when it comes to tech and lights and AV.
That's really cool.
Great.
With the ball, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm just gonna keep pitch. This entire episode is just a pitch, and it's awesome. The Cosplay Market Convention is, as Nix has explained, it's going to be like your regular anime convention at a smaller capacity, but also include this ethos of reusable and recyclable costumes with the recycling facility for scrap material, which you can bring up later if you want. But the exciting thing is, in the evening, they've also pitched a cosplay ball where everyone dresses up all fancy and in their formal cosplays, and I don't know what to expect, so I'm just going to go in with no expectations, honestly, because I feel like that's the best way to enjoy something like that. But what gave the idea for like a fancy after party or event like a ball that you wanted to attach at the end of the convention?
Yeah, so it's something that we've seen in other conventions, both internationally and some that are in different states and things. But it's just not something that's really happened in Brisbane. And I've always wanted to go to a cosplay ball, and no one else has done it, so I'm just going to do it myself, I think.
That's really cool.
But it's going to be awesome.
Do you have your costume already lined up for that? I was talking with Keely earlier before, and we're thinking, yeah, Nix is going to just wear something extravagant. We know it. But have you got your thing lined up?
I do. I'm planning on wearing my Sophie Hatter from Howl's Moving Castle.
That's beautiful. Do you have a howler?
Yeah,
Is that going to be Riley?
Yeah, my partner Riley's going to be Hal, so it'll be great. And the theme for the ball is Night Under the Stars, so it's very like celestial themed in the lighting and the photo backdrops that we'll have and all sorts of things. So it really matches with like her hair like starlight line at the end of the movie. So
Now,
I think that'll be a lot of fun.
That's really cool. Now, you're probably... I keep saying that's really cool. I picked that up in one of my episodes. I count the number of times I said that, and it just becomes automatic reaction, and I hate it.
Uh-oh, we're
Jeremy,
gonna have to start a counter.
Tell a counter. No, Jeremy, say something different. This is it. You're not going to hear anything
Jeremy,
be called.
thesaurus.
Nothing's cool anymore, Jinx. Not Jinx. Fuck it, Nix. I'm so sorry. I talked to Jinx last time. Okay.
We were
Nothing
talking
is
about
cool.
Jinx.
It's going to be even better than cool. That's what it's going to be. But I'm going to ask them the real questions. For anyone who is interested in going to... Let's start with the ball and we'll work backwards. If you're going to the ball and you're someone who's single, you're someone who is kind of looking for love under the stars, would you say this is kind of an appropriate event to just, meet people and mingle with others?
I would say yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
We do have some kind of icebreaker activities, as well as we have very skilled professional dancers coming in to teach us some like classic ball dances. So we'll have kind of that portion of the night, and we will also have your anime rave. So don't worry, there's something for everyone. But I think there is absolutely a chance to mingle. Obviously, keep it cool, keep it not creepy, everyone. Keep that in mind. But you can definitely meet people and make new friends.
That sounds fantastic. Look, I didn't say cool. That's awesome. Oh, very close. Very close.
See, fantastic. It's better than cool.
That sounds like such a great concept, what you guys are bringing to, try to change it up a little bit, because it's like you've mentioned before, conventions are always typically run with, profits in mind, or the same people who've been in the industry for ages, and you're looking to change it up a little bit. For the two of you as well, you're both young ladies, professionals running this thing for the first time. Have there been any particular any difficulties that you've encountered trying to set up something of this scale? I know it's starting really small, but have there been any particular, challenges that you guys have had to overcome in your time trying to set this up?
Yeah, I think shockingly, the main issue is like how we view ourselves and our inner confidence. I think you'd expect things to be more difficult, I guess, in the world. And we have had some people who have like a lot of very intense questions.
Yeah.
But you can kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
as well
absolutely.
when it's a first time event. So I don't know. I think we've been really lucky. I think we have a lot of great vendors and sponsors who seem to believe in us. Thank you so much. I think we do get a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, who are we to do this? But we're out here doing our best and hopefully creating something really cool.
Yeah, it honestly sounds... It's something really I'm really looking forward to, and I know a lot of people I've talked to, they initially didn't know about it, but they kind of say, hey, this is what it's about, and they're like, oh my god, that sounds awesome. It's just something different, something fresh. Because, in Australia, as well as I do, we've got the same, 2 or 3 convention conglomerates And it's more or less the very same thing, the same format year in, year out, and nothing really changes. You might have a different vendor here or there. Maybe, oh look, there's a taco truck. Like that's new. But apart from that, it's just the same kind of thing. So, if anyone who's done Supernova before, you've done one Supernova, you've done all the Supernovas. Oh look, that's a new guest. But, the convention's the same. You do an Oz Comic Con, very much the same thing. And, as a cosplayer like you and me, we're like, okay, let's go to this convention and try make our own fun. Let's see what's available. So this is where we start doing our own panels. This is where we start trying to, become guests, have a different experience. This is where we try sell things. Just because we are constantly looking for something new and different to do. But for yourself, and taking CMC out of the equation, because it is your project, your baby, what is your personal favourite convention in Australia, and why is that?
Ooh. Good question. I think you have a really good point about people who've been going to conventions for so long and they're all kind of the same. You do have to start to make your own fun, and that's okay because there are opportunities for that in doing panels, photo shoots, tabling, hosting meets, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it does get stale if you don't really have plans outside of that. But in terms of what my favorite con is, I think it is Smash.
Yeah.
I've been going to Smash for a long time, and it's an amazing, amazing place to be.
Now, just for you, because I was talking to Jacqueline before about this, one of the organisers. Why is that? Is it because something's new and exciting every year? Is it because it's such a big thing and it's just like the excitement of it all, just being a new city? Like, what about it do you like that you've kind of tried to channel and put it into CMC?
Good point. I think what I always find with Smash is that there's more to do than I ever have time to do in a weekend. Which sounds like a negative, but it's really good that they have so much amazing stuff going on. They have the Maid Cafe, they have the big time competitions and the smaller competitions that are still absolutely amazing. They have all of this stuff to check out, the coloring in area if you just need to chill for a second, the amazing idol stage. I just love it there. And they have amazing photographers up on the roof and the photo areas inside. There's just so much, and it's such a kind of pinnacle convention as well for artists. There are so many artists, and you get to see international artist alley vendors that come over for Smash because it is such a good convention for them. And I just love it. It's just so much fun.
That's really amazing. I really like that you've kind of tried to channel that energy. You could see me holding back on that one. That energy that you've kind of channeled, because in its same way, Smash is very similar to CMC in the way it started off as just an idea at a university club that someone decided to hold at their local university, and all of a sudden it's grown to this, enormous monolith of what an anime convention kind of should look like. So, and based on that too, because you mentioned there's all these different activities and events, they've also got an after party, which is going to be this, this anime rave at a local club. And it obviously stimulates the local economy by putting people into different food and hotels around the place. And you guys have even got a deal with one of the local hotels for CMC. Could you tell us about that little local deal as well?
Yeah, so there's a Quest Hotel just kind of across the road from our convention. I think that's really great for people, especially with the ball. You're there a bit later, or you want to just pop back to the hotel, take a rest, get changed, come back. We have a code with them. I don't 100% remember what percentage that gets off, but you can get a deal with the local Quest Hotel if you'd like to stay there around your Cosplay Market Convention experience.
There you go. So for anybody coming in, or if you don't know about this, it's not too late. You can jump on a plane, come and check out this convention, and say, I was there. I was there at the one where everyone had such a good time.
You're at the first one. You can get a badge that says, I went to the first Cosplay Market Convention, and then the clout, unimaginable.
Wow. That's going to go on eBay for hundreds of dollars. You watch. It's just a matter of time at this point. Now, for yourself, what ideas have you personally brought to CMC that you feel like, oh, that's kind of my little project that I'm excited to see what people do with? What kind of ideas say, yep, that was me?
Gosh, a lot of it's so collaborative, but from the start, I was really pushing for a ball.
Oh, wow.
I was like, people want this, I want this, we gotta do a ball.
So you were
And I was able to bring Ria on, who has the experience.
right.
But it is a bit like, I wanted this and we are doing it.
Have you done like classical dancing or anything before yourself, or it's something that you're like, yeah, I really want to do this?
No, I just like to make her wear ball gowns. That's where I'm coming from.
That's the bonus. That's the extra bonus.
And I want a cool place to wear it, basically. As well, I've been the one kind of doing the research and the communication with the charity, which is something I'm always passionate about. So this year we're focusing on mental health. So we're working with Stride for Mental Health, who also runs a local headspace, which is kind of what's most relevant to us. And we'll have them as a table, and they'll be able to talk on stage a bit about all of the great work they do. So that's great to both raise money and just like raise awareness for what's available locally. And that's kind of my pet project as well.
That's fantastic. I love that. So do you feel like each time that there's going to be an iteration, well, it's obviously going to depend on the outcome of how well this year's CMC does, but is that going to be an ongoing trend, do you think, where we're going to have a different charity to raise funds for every successive convention that goes forward?
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of our feedback survey last year as well. We were like, what sort of charity would you like to see? And this is one that sort of stood out for that. So I think that'll be something that keeps going kind of in talks with our community. We want to be able to give back to the world and help improve the world as part of our convention as well.
That's a really nice thing to do. I like that. Now, obviously from this first, we had a small hall somewhere in New Farm. You took a lot of feedback on board. What's some of the feedback that stood out to you that you remember that you said, oh, cool, we're going to definitely try and implement that feedback into the next one? What's some of the feedback that was either lots of people were saying it or, hey, that's a really good point we never thought of? Did anything like that stick out to you?
Gosh, the main overarching thing was that they wish it was bigger.
Wow. Okay.
So that's been the main thing we focus on. Absolutely.
I think if anything, in
wellness,
Brisbane, we're just starved for things to do. We're not like Melbourne or Sydney where they've got twice the number of people that we do, and businesses and money and support from the government, to go forward and make these things. So we've got one Gold Coast convention at the start of the year, and we've got now only two conventions in Brisbane at the end of the year, which is in October, November or something. And the other 9-10 months of the year we don't really have anything to do. Like we have to travel interstate. So for people in Brisbane, unless you Terry, our local wonderful photographer who hosts these small meet and greets, and unless you know about the events and you happen to see it pop up on Facebook, if you've even got Facebook these days, there's no way you
those are limited to 100.
Yeah, and it's very limited.
Like, they're really cool, but there's only so many people that can even attend.
That's right. And even then, you go, and if you want to socialise, excellent. Some people, and I find this a shame because I love socialising. It's a social skills coach thing. But people who say, no, that's not my thing, I just want to shop and look around and enjoy the day myself, you can't really do that until October and November. So I think for something like this, it's a real cool initiative because people want to do things. People want to see what else is out there. And we can't all afford to fly interstate to Smash or to PAX, 4 different conventions each year. So was that part of the planning as well, saying we need to make something at the start of the year, or to make something in the first half of the year versus, let's do it later in the year when it's a bit warmer or a bit cooler or whatever it is? So what was the kind of saying, let's do it in June? Was that part of the decision-making process?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there is kind of this desert space in the middle where there's no big events going on for Brisbane, and a lot of people will say it's very silly because Brisbane's a fairly warm place, and all of our cons are kind of in that warm, almost summer season, and that's very uncomfortable for wearing cosplay. So that's absolutely something we were thinking about. We want it to be in a cooler month, in the space where there's not as much going on. The community really needs something like that.
Now, just on a different note, just very slightly, obviously there was another Brisbane convention which happened the last few years called ACACon. I know you weren't intimately involved in everything running behind the scenes, but we were both active attendees of something like that. Now, obviously that went on for a couple of years. It seems in a very similar vein. People are like, wow, this is cool, something to look forward to, something that we want to attend and support and see what's going on there. From an event like that, even just as an attendee, which obviously doesn't exist anymore because it doesn't run anymore, Did you kind of learn from a smaller event like that as well in wanting to put forward plans for this one, like what they did well, what they didn't do well? Were there any kind of lessons that you think you picked up from, another similarly sized event?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ACACON really helped us because it proved that a independent event is possible and people will show up for
Yeah.
it, which was awesome. But I think as a recent smaller event that no longer happens, it's definitely something that we want to look at and analyze and make sure that we don't fall into the same pitfalls that they maybe did and kind of reflect on that,
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
you know.
Because it was something that's like, the first couple of times, I talked to Maya, I talked to Benny, and they're like, wow, this is cool, something to look forward to. I get to, see people and talk to people, and I get to be a judge, I get to be a guest, ambassador kind of thing. And you, especially for CMC, I've seen the application forms that you guys put out for everything. At this point in time, I'm not sure how many applications are still open a couple of weeks before the convention. Maybe there's, I don't know, cosplay contests, or what can people still apply for 2 weeks out from the con, Nix?
I'll be honest with you, I don't think anything's still open. We definitely want to have things organized by that point. But
sorry, look,
tickets are open.
Tickets are there. Look, if you missed out on doing anything,
Come along, have a fantastic time.
Just come along and enjoy it. But for things like, there was a cosplay competition, there was a photography competition, there's registration to become an ambassador, to sell things, to be an artist alley. For all things like that, because you're obviously the brains behind the operation, even just deciding, who gets to join what, was that a very difficult process for you? Was there like an overwhelming number of applications that was like, oh, we actually need to sit down and figure out who gets in and who doesn't? Was that difficult? Was there a process? How does that feel, being the person who gets to, I guess, call the shots here?
Yeah, it is difficult. We got a lot of applications, especially for the stage and for cosplay ambassadors.
Okay.
And it's tough because it's all great people and they're all like huge props for them for putting their name out, but there's only so much time in the day or space for ambassadors. So thank goodness we have more of a team now. It's not just Pip and I. There's also our stage coordinator, Monique, and our ambassador coordinator, Felix, who were able to help with those decisions, and we can kind of discuss the pros and cons and make sure we have a good variety. For the ambassadors, for example, we want to make sure that we have a range of skills because they're also judging the cosplay competition. And similarly with the stage, you want to present something that is a diverse range of different things, so it's entertaining throughout the day and not just the same thing, of course.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of discussion and machinations that go into it, and I'm just so proud of everyone who applied, and we only have so much time, and that is how it is, I guess.
No, that's absolutely fair. For something like that, because now that you're behind the sscenes kind of seeing these forms come in, does that give you personally a little bit more insight to, whenever you apply for something, does that kind of, help your brain kind of connect a few dots, being like, oh, okay, I can see why it's they ask this question on the form. I can see why I need to answer something in this way. So for yourself personally, when you apply, to reach out to bigger organizations or bigger competitions, has that kind of helped give you a bit more insight as well to how, I guess, you're going to change the way that you answer forms and stuff?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also given me some heart that there are people who we do think are really good, but there's only so much we can fit.
Yeah.
As well. So I think that gives me a bit more hope.
Yeah.
When I get rejected from things as well.
I'm glad. Now, I think it's because it's something when I was applying for just anything really, whether it be going to a competition, to do a panel somewhere, and I don't think anybody ever in the history of anything gets accepted or promoted every single time. That's just not possible for a variety of reasons, which may or may not be out of your control, right? But it kind of really helps to show that when you do apply for something, you get knocked back or you get accepted or whatever it is for whatever reason, I think it's great, it's something to celebrate when you do get something like that, but at the same time, it's not something that you should be beating yourself up over, because it's like, wow, great, I would have loved to accept, all, 40 of these applicants, but realistically, if we're going to fit them all on stage and make sure everyone has appropriate amount of time to make sure the people who do get on are recognized for what they do, it's not really going to work if we have 40, so we do need to limit it, right? But again, it's another thing too where it's, if you get accepted, doesn't mean you're better or worse than somebody else, because, you know, at some stage, everybody was starting off wearing Hetalia. In my case, it was Vampire Night, okay? I'm not going to throw shade. I was doing Vampire Night, okay? I've still got the costume. Does it fit? I don't know, but it's still there. But just everyone starts somewhere, and everyone is on their journey, you know, to go wherever they want to go. So I don't think that, you know, when... And I'm not just saying this because it's like, yeah, Jeremy, just because you've been on stage... Listen, I was also in the trenches, all right? We all start somewhere. Nix was in the trenches as well. Nix, what's the thing that you've taken up on stage, which at the time you thought, yeah, this is sick, but you look back on it now and you're like, that's not so sick. What was I thinking? Is there anything that comes to mind?
All the time. So often, like when I don't win competitions, I'll be like, "Oh, that sucks. I'm sad," and not too bad. But and then looking back, I'm like, "Yeah, that was not the best costume there." Pretty much all the time. I look back and I think you are your own worst critic, but that's okay. Like my Edelgard, I wore to ACACON, for example.
Looks phenomenal.
I did my best.
You did. I think it looks great.
But I can see, especially now, why that wasn't the one that won at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's a good kind of introspective kind of thing where you do your best and you say, "Oh, I didn't get it." And sometimes, hopefully, it's most of the time, it's like, "Oh, I can see why," when you kind of see what else was there, how you did, and it's like, oh, cool. Hopefully that gives you the introspection to be like, okay, cool, I know what I need to do without anyone having to tell you, kind of thing. But I think we're also very fortunate that we are in a community or in a hobby in which if you don't know something, if you're a bit confused as to a decision that's been made, if you're a bit confused as to, oh, I thought I did pretty good, I actually look better than, you know, what my competition was doing, but I'm not really sure why. We are in a community or position to actually ask for that kind of feedback. Either constructive criticism or just the opinions of somebody else. And I don't think that we're surrounded by people who are just going to intentionally try to knock you down a few pegs because, like, you suck, you didn't do this right, me. It's not like that. Have you ever heard Nix talk like that? Never. Have you ever been in the position yourself where you've had to give feedback? You're the judge, and it's like, oh, can you give me something constructive to work with? How's that experience for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've judged a lot of competitions at MacPopCon, HighFest, OzComicCon a couple times, and the most recent Supernova. So I always offer to give feedback, and I always tell people to message me because I feel like if I'm there on the day, I might not necessarily remember everything I want to say or like say it in a very helpful way. So send me a message and then I can think out my paragraph. And that's taught me a lot about competing for myself, of course, getting to be in the judges' room and see what sort of things they're talking about. So I always try and give feedback where I'm letting them know what they did really well as what they improved on, and kind of giving advice on how they can improve on it. So it's not just like, oh, that looked kind of bad.
It's really interesting because I actually got to judge a competition in which it was one of those. This is for Madman, where there's multiple rounds. So if anyone doesn't remember, or if anyone does remember but kind of forgets the process, there was a national competition in Australia for a convention that used to exist called MadFest. And MadFest made up their own competition called the Madman National Cosplay Competition, which at the time, that was like the only big competition alongside WCS. Then, OzComicCon got a big thing, Supernova. Does the Supernova Odyssey still run, or is that not a thing at the moment?
That has not been around since COVID. I'm not sure what the plans are.
Okay. So the Supernova used to have a big one. OzComicCon, the championships is cosplay still running, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the current iteration of Madman, but Madman was anime only. So that's my fields. That's my field, because I only do anime and games, and it's like, oh, you're Western media? No, not for me, thanks. But with Madman, there were rounds in different states. So Queensland had a convention. They have a competition. Victoria had one. Sydney had one. Western Australia and Perth had one. Adelaide had one. So at the end, the winner of all those comes together in one big competition down in Melbourne, and they all kind of compete. right? There was one particular round in which there was one entrant, and I'm like, oh, Jeremy, can you judge? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, there's nothing to judge here. What am I doing here? But even then, they were humble enough to say, hey, look, I know we're the only entrant, but can you give us some feedback? I'm like, what do you need feedback for? It's like, well, I want to, make sure going to the finals that I'm going to do the best that I can. So, if there's anything that you feel like you can critique me on, it's like, what can you give? And this is kind of funny to ask too, because I feel, in terms of technical skill of making things, they are at a much higher level than me. So it was like, oh, okay, sure. You know what? Let me give the expertise in what I can. And this is, I think, where you, I'm hoping for any decisions that you've made regarding CMC, have a really good point of let's pick people with a diverse array of skills, because my skill is definitely not in sewing. I can do it. If it's a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like professional level and 1 being like, hey, I bought my first sewing machine, I'm maybe about a 5. At best. Maybe a 6 on a good day, but I'm nowhere near what you guys can do, what you or Maya or any other epic sewing cosplay can do. So I said, okay, you know what I can comment on is your skit performance. I'm sorry to say, that was not... you probably feel like this as well. You have to feel like there's a good way to say things in a very constructive, nice way. Because there's a way of saying, hey... your skit was really boring. I don't mean to offend you, but it was... No, you don't say that. It's like, look, I think that there's a way that you could improve your skits. You find nice ways to say it. Do you feel like, for yourself as well, that's comes very naturally? Or you have to really like, oh, I have to like stop myself from talking for a second and try to find the right words? Because you seem like a pretty well-spoken person, so does that come naturally to you?
I definitely have to like consider my words, but it's not too bad because I do like to analyze things. Also, just for my own knowledge, where I'm like if I watch a skit and think, that was kind of boring, it's good for me to like analyze. Well, what made it boring? Yeah. What could have been better? What could have been tightened up? And that will help me improve my own work in the future. Which also helps because if they ask me, I can kind of tell them what could have been improved.
Interesting. Do you feel like you're at the level now where you kind of can look at a costume, you look at a skit, and you're like, oh, I can pick out what I like and don't like pretty quickly from that? Or you kind of like, I have to pull out the magnifying glass now because it's getting to the nitty-gritty part?
I think I can in a way, but it always helps with costume judging to be able to look at the seam finishes and everything up close. Or say their painting technique, how are the foam seams, how is the 3D printing finished, no matter what they have, kind of get up in there and see the actual quality of the work, which you can't necessarily see from stage.
That's fair. Now, just in terms of competition, we are talking about the CMC competition. What's going to happen at this competition? What's different? What's unique? What's up for grabs? Tell us a little bit about the competition at CMC.
Yeah, so as longtime cosplay competitors, Pip and I have a lot of opinions on how cosplay competition should be.
Yep.
And a big part of that is including pre-judging where there is enough time for the judges to look. So not only do we have judges with a range of skills, but we have a scheduled time in like a quiet place where the judges are able to get a really good look at the costumes and the construction and talk to the competitors up close and personal. And that was something we really wanted. And then, of course, there'll be the stage portion where my goodness, let me start again. Okay. And then, of course, there'll be the stage portion.
Stage portion, yeah.
Where the audience gets to see all of the amazing cosplayers, and we have some incredible prizes from our sponsors. For example, we have a 2-meter piece of veg tan leather, which is worth about $300 from our awesome sponsor. So people can get into leather work, for example. Yeah. We also have a lot of great vouchers to places like Lumen's Workshop Classic. They're a huge community supporter, as well as 2 different sewing places. So we've got some really great prizes for people, and we've got some really great entrants. So I can't wait to see how everyone does at the competition.
That's awesome. How many entrants are in this competition? And same thing, did you have so many that you're like, oh, I actually have to kind of turn some down? Or was it kind of, we just got a good number that we can accept everybody?
Yeah, we definitely had a cap in mind, but we didn't get more than that, luckily. I believe we have 7 entrants for our competition.
That's awesome. God, at this point too, with the prizes on available, it's like, well, everyone might get something at this point, which is really cool. That's great. For the sponsors, is that something you guys had to reach out for, saying, "Hey, we've got this new competition, new convention," or did they just kind of come to you and say, "Hey, we saw what you're doing. We'd like to be a sponsor for this thing"?
Yeah, so this has all been us reaching out. So we've kind of had a list of businesses that are relevant that I've maybe seen sponsor events that are similar before, that I sent them a really good email
Oh,
to.
good email, good job.
And it's amazing who's been interested in what we're about. So not only do we have these cosplay competition prizes, but we also have raffle prizes as part of our charity raffle. We got sponsored a whole sewing machine from
Wow,
Echidna Sewing
that's
that we
amazing.
get to give away as part of our raffle, as well as tickets to all sorts of things such as Mirai Nights or Smash, and prize packs from magazines such as Colin Magazine, that are awesome parts of the community. So I'm just amazed at people coming together and believing in us in a way where they want to sponsor what we're doing.
That's amazing. I didn't even know half those prizes existed. That's really nice. So, with something like that as well, are they going to be at the convention as well, promoting things, or they just said, "Oh, look, have these things and have fun," kind of thing?
Yeah, it really depends on the business. Some of our sponsors will be in the vendor hall, other sponsors interstate or just otherwise not able to make it this year. So it just depends.
That's fair. Were there any sponsors that you in particular like? Oh my god, yes, I want to reach out to these guys and see what happens. And did some sponsors not reply? Did some sponsors just give you a nasty email in return? What was it like? What have you learnt about the industry?
Sometimes things either go to spam or they just never get back to you, and that's
Yeah.
okay. You miss all the shots you don't take, you know?
Absolutely right.
Um,
For yourself personally, you've probably written more than one email reaching out to conventions or groups or competitions here and there. What's one that you feel like, yes, I'm so glad I did this because they got back to me? And what's one where you feel like, yeah, like I'm shooting for like Jupiter at this point in time. It's pretty far, but what are some of the bigger things that you've applied for which have or haven't gone so well?
Gosh. I applied for the Comic-Con Spotlight, but in fact,
Ooh.
before the Comic-Con Spotlight existed,
Yeah,
I
right.
was in the emails of Comic-Con being like, is there a space for cosplayers to sell their wares? And there kind of wasn't at that stage. You know, they
Yeah.
have the cosplay guests, but there isn't that space for kind of the more up and coming cosplayers. So,
Was this your doing?
not humble brag.
Was that
It
you?
might be my doing.
Oh!
It might be my doing a little bit because I was trying I was trying to table as like someone who does cosplay commissions. So I've done some tabling in artist alleys, but it wasn't really what they wanted for their artist alley. So I was like, could there be somewhere? So maybe humble brag.
Look, I'm gonna say it is. Guys, did you know that Nick's Cosplay started the up and coming cosplay spotlight at Oz Comic Con? This is the person. Ironically, have you gotten that spot yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. Thank God. Because if you did, I'll be like, okay, this is not really right. So
No, it was in the first Brisbane one. It was a really good time.
it's nice because it is a local, kind of convention. It is a local community, and it's nice that they're giving this platform to cosplayers who obviously wants to try and do something with cosplay. And a lot of the time, those spots go to the very established, won several big competitions kind of cosplayers, and the well deserved for those cosplayers. But it obviously means, I have to climb this enormous ladder to get to a spot where I will be, seen as someone worthy. But this kind of gives it like a nice stepping stone to get to somewhere like that. And in the same way, I remember you mentioning before, for cosplay like ambassadors at CMC, it's something in which you try to get a wide variety, but you're also going to try and get new ambassadors in each time that it happens. Was that something that was planned, or something that you guys really had to think about, or it was just a decision that you felt like came naturally because of, the community itself?
Yeah, that's something we've always thought about conventions. That's something we've always thought about conventions. You'll see kind of the same people at the same convention all the time,
Yeah.
and like they've earned that spot. They are fantastic.
Yeah.
But what we really want to see at conventions is a wider range of people getting those opportunities and getting to connect with the community in that way. So that's why we want to have a range of different people. We can kind of provide that platform to people who are maybe less experienced, as well as bringing in people who are maybe more experienced, who can kind of teach them about how things work, and get that experience and build up that platform to go on to do greater things.
That's really cool. So it's not just people who are established, but people who are also up and coming, and they can kind of share those experiences. And I'm guessing in the same way, you're going to ask for feedback from everybody in every capacity, from both attendees to vendors to sellers to guests to ambassadors, saying, who was great, what went well, what didn't go well, tell us about it. So that's really exciting. Now, what are you going to be doing on the day? Are you going to be in the back room making sure everything goes according to plan, or are you actually going to enjoy yourself on the floor?
I think I will be pretty hardcore working on the day. So I'll be mostly based at the info desk as well as just running around to wherever needs me, more or less.
Just about the area itself, I haven't really been to that section before, but you said it's, we can up to 1,000 capacity guests in the hall at the same time, is it? Or that's the number of tickets that you're selling as attendance kind of thing?
1,000 is the maximum capacity for the building, basically.
Right. So, okay. And you've obviously been to check out the building and see what it's like. And I don't know, what's it feel like? Is it a big convention hall like we can expect at something like Supernova? Or is it like something... It's obviously going to be bigger than a community hall, which we had last time. But what's this kind of feel like if you were to give it a similar room association? Like the size of a pub? Is it the size of a Kmart? Like, what are we looking at here?
Oh gosh, maybe a big Kmart.
A big Kmart. Wow.
I don't know if that means anything to anyone.
Hey,
but yeah,
Kmart's sizable. Yeah.
So with our space, we have kind of the atrium, which is the big entry hall, which has the food vendors and the info desk and the first aid and things like that. And that's got some great big windows that's really well lit, like a lovely spot to be.
Yeah.
And then you can go into the vending sort of hall, which is carpeted. It's not concrete.
Ooh.
I hate having to work at conventions when it's concrete on the floor. That hurts your body.
It would. Absolutely would. That's interesting.
So that's awesome. So we'll have our vendors and our cosplay display and our cosplay guests and things like that in that hall. And then we also have the big stage hall, which has a capacity of, I think, 150 people. Like there's 150 chairs for people to watch the stage. And then we also have, say, like our quiet room, which is more off to the side.
That's cool.
And more of a chill out space.
So I'm assuming the stage hall is where the panels and stuff are going to be, as well as after the convention finishes, is also where the ball's going to be, the cosplay ball.
Yeah, so the ball is going to be in actually the main atrium room.
Oh wow! So at the front, was it?
At the front in the main hall.
The concrete, is that the one?
There's no concrete.
No concrete.
There's no concrete anywhere.
Wow! So the whole thing's carpeted.
We are carpeted up.
That's amazing.
And then our stage area will be converted into like quieter sit-down area with some tables and things if you want to take a moment out or just want to be able to chat to your friends without shouting over the music during the ball.
Cool. And just for what can we find there in terms of facilitating for people? There's obviously going to be, you mentioned food vans before, there's a quiet room. Is there anything else like that you guys have really thought in and wound into the plans?
Another big thing is our cloakroom. So
Ooh.
people will be able to drop off bags or like big props and things like that in a room during the day so they don't have to worry about it, but it's also easy to access, which I think is a huge thing for cosplayers, especially with the ball. If you want to get changed into something later on in the day, there is that space to store it.
And just one last thing too, when I just thought about it now, because you obviously had things like cosplay competition and ambassador applications and panel applications, etc., etc. What was it like for, I guess, booth/vendors and also even food trucks? Like, did they have to apply for those as well, or did you kind of reach out to some local restaurants and stuff saying, "Hey, we got this event coming up. Did you want to be part of it?" What was that like? I've never thought about having to reach out to food businesses before. I've never done it, so that's what's like, wow, that's actually really interesting.
There's so much to think about. So our food and beverage coordinator is actually Terry, who runs the meets, and he's great to have on the team.
Yeah.
So it was his job to reach out to and coordinate with food vendors.
Interesting.
Awesome. And then in terms of like the vendors and the artist alley and things like that, that was by application.
Wow. And by the sounds of it, just about anything that you said, apply for this, people were applying.
Oh yeah.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting.
Yeah, we had so many more artists than we could fit, and it
really?
hurts a bit.
If you don't mind me asking, how many kind of applications did you have, and how many spots were available this time around?
So I believe we had about 30 artist applications, and we have 15 spaces for
Yeah,
them.
wow. And how about the vendors as well, like for people selling the second-hand cosplay goods and stuff like that? Was that a similar number, or?
Oh yes. I'm fully blanking on the number, to be
No,
honest.
that's okay, because I'm just like, hey, what are these numbers? What are these stats, Nix? You remember.
I don't remember this many of them.
But if anything, it's really encouraging to see that, hey, look, new event, smaller event, people are really wanting to get involved just by the way they are applying for things, in a way that you're having to say, oh, crap, we actually have to, cut the numbers because we can't fit that many in, so. But, look, we're actually coming to the end of our podcast. That flew by so quick. For anybody wanting to find out more information both about you and your personal cosplay journey, as well as the CMC details for the event, where online can we find these details, Nix?
Yes, so CMC is cmc.aus on Instagram and TikTok primarily. We also have a Facebook page. I don't know if anyone's really using Facebook, but we are there. As well as we have our website, which is cosplaymarketcon.com.au. And then if you want to find me, I'm not as cool as the event.
Don't say that. You made the event what it is. Tell us about yourself.
I am Nix_cosplay, and I primarily post on Instagram and TikTok.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us for doing this podcast. It was a lot of fun. Have you done podcast stuff before? Because you're a natural. Very easy.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. I haven't done a podcast before.
Wow.
I've done interviews for some magazines and newspapers, and I've also done some streaming, which I think can be similar in, like, you're talking and you got to talk good the whole time.
Yeah. But you're also focused on not... Well, actually, what kind of stream were you doing? Was it like video games? Were you sewing? Were you baking?
It was sewing.
That's cute. God, that would be
Yeah, it
tough.
was sewing, and I did some 3D printing things. And also, now that I think about it, I've also done my fair share of panels, and I think it's all sort of public speaking practice, basically.
Yeah. Do you find public speaking easy? Is that like a natural thing for you as well, or you have to kind of build yourself up?
It's something I've really worked on building myself up with. I hated it in high school. In one of my high school classes, I was generally not doing very well in high school, but I decided to take a 0 instead of doing the presentation.
Wow.
Because I did not want to do it.
And look at you now. Look at you now.
I know.
You've
I know,
got
but
so
it's something
far.
I really wanted to be good at. So it's something that I've pushed myself through doing some videos, doing panels, doing streaming, and learning and improving on that skill, because it's really not something that comes naturally to me.
So proud of you. Look how far you've come. You're doing so good, Nix.
Thank you.
Anyway, everybody listening in, I hope to see you at the Cosplay Market Convention in a couple of weeks. You be there, because it's going to be awesome. I've got my ticket. Have you? If you don't, go get it. Check it out. I'll put all the details in the description below. But thank you very much for joining us on this episode, Nix. Thanks everyone for listening in. We will catch you next week on the podcast, but I'll see you in person at CMC.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for chatting with me, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Nix, for joining us. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.